Hello. So I've decided that I need to start at the beginning of my float journey, and that would start with sharing my first float experience, and maybe just giving a bit of a brief layout of what floating actually is, so that it's understood what it is that I'm talking about. And also I'm going to acknowledge, before I get into that, this like little doodle I have on my knees. It's pretty cute. There's like two people looking at each other. See? Isn't that awesome? My friend Natasha is a body painter, and she just did a little doodle on me, and I kind of love it, so I'm just hanging out and not washing it off yet. So anyways, what I wanted to get into basically is I'll do like a little introduction to what floating is, and then share with you my first float experience. Okay, so what is floating? I hear this question almost every day, and it's still challenging trying to put it into a very concise like little package that's easily deliverable and understandable. So what I usually tell people is it's based off of what is called reduced environmental stimulus therapy, which is very much what it sounds like. You're reducing your environmental stimulus and immersing yourself in an environment like that for an hour plus, and it has a significant effect on your mind and body. Allows the energy in your body that's generally being put towards things like gravity compression inside of your body. Like, for example, right now, my spine and all muscles and organs and everything that equals this body is experiencing gravity, and a lot of energy is being put towards compensating for that. And in the tank, that energy isn't necessary, and well, not as necessary, I guess, and so that energy gets redirected to other areas. Because it's okay. So the tank itself is 8.5 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet, and or I think it's 8 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. It depends on the actual tank. There are a lot of different sizes. They're all roughly the same, but it's a tank full of Epsom salt water. This is falling off. And there's about 1,000 pounds of salt in the tank, which creates an extremely buoyant water. It's very much like the Dead Sea. Actually, it's even more buoyant than the Dead Sea. So if you're familiar with the Dead Sea, that's kind of what we're working with. So that's what allows your body to be outside of the gravity experience. And there's no light, which it's a very contained environment. So there's no light. There's no sound. You have earplugs, and your ears are actually underwater. The water line is basically, if you're lying down, the water line it's like here. So the top of your body is out of the water. The front of your body is out of the water, and the back of your body is in the bottom, underneath. And oops, I have a really makeshift tripod, and I feel like it's going to fall off. Okay, hopefully we survive this. Okay, so yeah, you're floating about in 10.5 inches of water, and yeah, no light, no sound, very little stimulus as far as scent is concerned, and yeah, you're just sort of letting yourself be inside of a very minimal stimulus environment. And the benefits to that there's so many benefits. Basically, it helps to encourage pain relief, which it does that by lowering your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, and stress inside the body intensifies pain and the actual experience of pain. And so a lot of people who suffer from chronic pain come to the center to deal with their chronic pain. A lot of fibromyalgia people dealing with fibromyalgia and things like that require pretty serious like neurological medications, which inebriate them pretty intensely, can come in and not be medicated and live a pretty comfortable life. And so I think that's pretty amazing in itself. Other people come for meditative purposes, just sort of getting deeper into their meditation practice. Some people come just to experience, just for the novelty of it, and end up exploring their inner realms. And some people come specifically to explore their inner realms, like psychonauts. A lot of people who are familiar with sort of those inner delvings, like myself, find it a pretty conducive environment for that. And I mean, there's so many other reasons. You come out of the tank feeling like your whole body's been massaged and everything's really soft, and you feel pretty blissed out and pretty calm and happy. I mean, I do anyways. Most people who come out of their floats, and I've seen thousands of people come out of those tanks, I would say 99% of them feel pretty blissed out and are significantly more cheerful than when they went in, and so I find that pretty cool too. So that's kind of the gist of it. Like I said, I haven't found a way to compress that. I kind of end up giving a spiel about what it is, but it's kind of a difficult thing to describe, and because I really think the multiple reasons for floating are worth mentioning as well. So it's hard to concisely put it in a little package, but so that's that. A lot of people, like, one of the first things that people say, I would say 80% or 70% of the people that come in who don't know about it ask, what if I'm claustrophobic? I'm claustrophobic, so I don't know if I can deal with that. And I actually find it really interesting that people, that 70% of these people think that they're claustrophobic. I'm not 100% certain if that's accurate description of what their experience is in enclosed spaces. Yeah, we're all a little uncomfortable in enclosed spaces. I think that's kind of more of an existential programming that we all have to, make sure that we don't find ourselves contained in a container, just because that's usually like triggering to like danger, and I don't know, being buried alive or stuck under a rock or something. I'm not actually sure. But I think that's old programming and it's not really necessary, but it makes sense, and we've all got it. It's like lizard brain or monkey brain, or whatever you want to call it. So claustrophobia, something to think about with that. If you do have thoughts on claustrophobia and you do feel like you're working with something like that, or even just a discomfort in general about the enclosed environment, there's a lot of things that you can do. You can open the door and just sort of float with the door open for a little while. A disadvantage to that is that it will gradually drop the temperature in the tank and cause you to feel cold inside of there. And because it's a skin receptor neutral environment, it's not really an optimal solution to that. But it's nice that you can start your session that way. You can start your session with music. Depending where you're floating, you can start your session with music, or like for 5-10 minutes of your float, or throughout the whole float. But the preferred method, I guess for me at least, is no sound. So if you want to ease into the full-on experience and you don't want to just shut the door right away, you can prop the door with a towel. You can just position yourself inside the tank so that your head is close to the door, so that you just know that you're in proximity to it, and that might even help. So there's a lot of different ways that you can ease into it, and make yourself more comfortable. It's also important to know that you're in full control of the experience, and so if you at all ever feel uncomfortable, you can just paw around for a second, find the door, and then step out, just sort of assess where you're at, and then get back in, or just get out, and that's all you need. The dialogue that you have with yourself is really important too, and worth having. Sometimes you find yourself in the tank saying things like, it's okay, it's safe here, And we don't really get to tell ourselves that very often. We don't really get to say, it's okay, it's safe here, and to have those really encouraging dialogues with ourselves. So I think even that is really special if we find ourselves fearful, alone in a space that's very unfamiliar. It allows us to open up the dialogue, and I think that's pretty special. So there's a lot of stuff that can go on inside there, and yeah. So even if you think that you're doing it wrong, and that, you know, getting out or that you felt uncomfortable or you felt anxiety or fear, there's no such thing as floating wrong. It's exactly what it needs to be for you. If your first float involved you getting out several times, and mine did, then it did, and that's that. And if I could just personally advise you not to judge it so harshly. But even if you do judge it, that's going to be part of your process too. And you know, just open yourself to whatever lessons come from it. So if it involves you being pretty critical with yourself, it's an opportunity for you to reflect on your tendency to be critical with yourself. So so the lessons inside of it, they're limitless. And yeah, I just really wanted to touch on the claustrophobia aspect too, because it's a really common thing that people mention. And I would say most people who have those reluctancies are mostly comfortable. I've had only a couple of people who weren't available to do it in that moment, or on that particular day. They tried and they got out in a couple of minutes, and that's fair. And they listened to themselves and they honored, you know, their boundaries and comfort levels. So I think that's also awesome. So I guess I could also share, you know, what are some exercises or things that you can do in the tank. So you know, positioning yourself like this is pretty popular, just allowing the neck muscles to disengage and not feel the need to hold your head up so intently. We don't need to activate these muscles or any muscles in there at all, but I think muscle memory kind of kicks in the way that it would in a regular water environment, and so, you know, our bodies are gonna think that we need to activate these muscles, and then so you might find that your neck is kind of kinked in an odd position. So if you cradle your head like this, it will allow you to disengage that need to hold, and prevent yourself from causing any kind of neck strain or headaches or jaw clenching or eyebrow furrowing or anything that kind of feels you know, tense. And so having that knowledge is important too, just cradling your head, because otherwise you can come out of there feeling kind of strained or a headache or something like that, and a little bummed out by that. So I like to tell people that as well. I think that as far as like exercises and things like that, and I'll actually get into that on another video. I'm just going to kind of put this one together in as small a package as I can. I'm going to talk about expectations. So having expectations before going into the tank, you know, doing a lot of research online, for example, like, you know, listening to other people's first floats on YouTube and things like that. All of those things are, you know, it makes sense that you would want to do all that research, and yeah, go for it. That's, you know, if that's what you want to do, awesome. And if that helps you make a more a better decision about whether or not it's your time to go in, then cool. But don't have any expectations about what your experience is going to look like. I think that's kind of setting yourself up to have potential disappointment. Just go in with an open mind, you know, with a willingness to receive whatever the tank is going to offer you, and just accept it. Just let it be whatever it is, and don't try to control it. That's just a personal suggestion. In the float industry, a lot of people believe in the notion of not programming beforehand, and I subscribe to that as well. So I hope that this doesn't come off as programming at all. I really encourage a neutral, going into it with a neutral mind, and yeah, so hopefully that comes across. In the post-float realm, after you've had your experience, you know, allow yourself some time to integrate it. Maybe don't try to summarize it right away, and if it is really clear right off the bat, awesome. You know, write it down, draw some pictures if you need to. Like, let your mind just give your mind whatever it is that it needs to express, if it wants to express, or if you want to be quiet, just sit in a space of quiet, and just give yourself whatever it is that you need. So make space after your float. Don't. It's not really advisable to have some place that you'll be rushing off to right away. Unless you've been floating for a while and you're kind of familiar with what it's going to be. Yeah, it's just nice to give yourself that just in case you need it. So yeah, I'm also going to get into my first float experience, but I think I'm actually going to put that in another video, because this one has gotten to that 16-minute mark, and I want to kind of make sure that these videos aren't getting to that 20-minute point. So yeah, I'll put a stop on this one for a second, and then I'll just open up another video for to share with you my first float experience, and the experience that put me on a path of eventually working at a float center. So I hope that I covered as much of the sort of preemptive stuff as I could. Oh, I never mentioned fear. Fear before I go. Sorry. Fear is a really important thing to acknowledge. If you experience fear or anxiety or tension or anything like that in and around the tank, I just want you to know that it's normal. If you have like reluctance and you know, not knowing if you're ready and things like that, we all experience it. Even people who've floated several times still go into it with a bit of a flicker of that, and I think that's natural. You know, there's a sense of awareness that you'll be connecting with something much bigger than you, and there's a huge element of the unknown, and so of course you'll feel that way. And my only advice is to just be mindful of it and be kind to yourself and compassionate to yourself inside of those moments of resistance or fear, and see if there's any way that you can transform it into something more comfortable, something more loving. But listen to yourself and honor the feelings that you have and the discomforts that you feel. And if you feel like you need to get out, or if you feel like it's not really your time or whatever, listen to it, respect that, and when it is the right time, it'll happen for you. So yeah, that's all. Alright, so I will see you guys in a few seconds. Just putting this one on pause, or just stopping it. Yeah, I'm going to stop it completely. But yeah, I will see you very shortly, and thank you so much for listening. Bye, 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 bye.